Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay. So, today we are in Revelation chapter 6. We'll be starting in verse 3. But I wanted to take a second and kind of share something that happened this last week that I thought was really interesting. It was... Good morning, John.
Hey, how are you?
It was something that God used to stretch me and to grow me, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt like it was really important to share, because we are in Revelation and we're going to be starting to get into the wrath of God being poured out. And I started thinking, at times it can be hard to pull application, like daily application, from things like that above and beyond, thank the Lord that we don't have to be a part of that wrath. And so I started thinking, I felt it would be good for me to share some of these things that I went through this last week, that really impacted me in a big way. So a little while ago, Ron reached out and let me know about a service project that needed to be done. And so I got really excited about it. Topher and I have been working really hard to get the core of men's ministry up and running. And so we've got a bunch of guys that are willing to just about at any time drop anything and come help. And so on one hand, I was excited because we have another project that we get to do. On the other hand, full transparency, because of how I grew up and some of the things that I went through as a kid, one of my struggles is seeking approval, especially from older men, because I don't get approval from my father. I wrestle with that a lot, and so oftentimes when I'm navigating things in my life, I have to be very mindful of, am I doing that for God, or am I doing that to make this man give me approval that I'm searching for in some way because I feel like I'm not getting that elsewhere? So I have to be aware of that. When Ron asks me to do things, I tend to take it very seriously, because he's my mentor. He's the first man that I opened up to about what God was doing in my life. And he took me under his wing, and I look up to him and I respect him a lot. And that's a good thing. But sometimes when he asks me to do things, I take that role of responsibility, and sometimes the effort that I put in comes from a place of wanting to please or get approval from Ron as opposed to God. So the stage is set. So Ron calls and lets me know about this project, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited for several reasons, but we had some yard work to do. So when Ron explained the project to me, I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm going to go ahead and make some phone calls, see who I can put together for a team, because the last couple of projects we've had just a menagerie of people that jumped in and helped out, so it made light work of everything. So I just immediately jumped in, started making some phone calls, and wasn't getting a big response. Topher put out a group text to our normal people that I thought was going to get a big response. Nothing. So I started to feel that pressure kind of rise up inside. Like, man, I'm supposed to be heading up this project. I'm supposed to be doing this, and I don't want to let Ron down. I don't want to let this other guy down. Like, I got to figure out how to do this. And so I kept trying to push harder. I kept trying to figure out how to get it done, and ultimately kind of just felt like, all right, well, if I can't get anybody else's help, I'm just going to do it myself. I'll just do it. It needs to be done, and I'm just going to do it. Almost like this arrogance started to come around, like, man, if nobody wants to help out, I'll just do it myself, because, I care about this more than whatever. I had one other guy, Dave, that said he was going to help out. And so I knew I could rely on Dave, but my situation, I don't drive. I'm not driving a car right now, and so to do yard work, you need lawnmowers, equipment, stuff like that. Well, I have to rely on somebody else to get that stuff, and I have to rely on somebody else to get it in a car that I don't have. I have to rely on everybody else to do something that I should be heading up at the project. So then I have those voices that I kept talking about start to creep in. Those voices like, man, you're not good enough, and like, who are you to be trying to head up this project when you can't even drive? You can't even get all these pieces and put them together, let alone organize the whole thing. So like, what do you even think you're doing? Wrestling with it. Eventually it comes down to the day that we are going to get out and get things done. Dave is amazing with wanting to help and just very casual about it. He doesn't even care about how long he has to drive or go back and forth picking things up. Doesn't even care. It was just awesome. So that was good. But right before on that morning, I was stressing. I couldn't get all the pieces together. Couldn't figure out where we were going to get the equipment to do it and how to get everything done. So I called Topher in the morning and I'm like, man, bro, I don't even know what's going to happen, man. We have all this work to do, but I'm not getting anybody's help, and it's just going to be me and Dave, and I don't know how much we're going to get done, and I don't know where we're going to get the equipment, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, Topher. And he just calmly goes, yeah, in Topher fashion, he goes, man, have you even prayed? Dang it. Nope, you're right. I didn't. So in that moment, we talked, I got to calm down, prayed, got my heart back in the right place where I was like, okay, so, Lord, I need to put you first because, I'm doing, again, running right into another thing where I'm doing it for you, but I'm not doing it with you. So I thought, all right, awesome. So Dave and I got together, we accomplished a whole bunch, we felt good about it. I was excited that we got a bunch of work done. But when I got home, my whole life is centered around this question, God, what are you doing in this? How are you working in this? What do you want me to know? How am I supposed to learn? What are you trying to show me? Teach me. Something. I don't go into anything and just kind of go, well, okay, yeah. If I don't have something to show about what God showed me in a day, that day was wasted. I need to know, okay, if I'm walking in somewhere, my steps are ordained. He has called me to be here. That means there's a reason for me to be here, a purpose for me to be here. What is it? I want to know. So I got home and I'm like, all right, God, thank you for this day. We got a lot done. That was great. And putting you into that situation and doing it with you, that took the pressure off, and it was a really good thing. But I felt the Holy Spirit said, was it? Was it as good as you think it was? Wait a minute, what? What do you mean? What are you trying to show me? What I don't get it. And I go, it's okay. So here's what I came up with. I, again, fell into the same trap of getting busy, doing stuff for God, but not with Him. And God had to remind me again, hey, up here, do it with me. I want to be there with you. I want to be there with you. I want to be there in the moment. I want to show you stuff. I want to talk with you. I want to have a relationship with you in all these moments. And I'm like, yeah. how many times have I been in those moments that God has to continually remind me of step one? Where he has to continually remind me, hey, by the way, let's do this together. And what lessons am I missing out on? What deeper things could I be taught in those moments because I'm so caught up with him having to remind me, hey, up here, eyes up here. Okay, now I've got your focus. Now let's do the thing. But that, I don't feel like that was the lesson that God wanted to show me in this whole process of doing this yard work. There might have been something else in that whole framework of what I was supposed to be doing that he wanted to use to show me an application for something, something that I could have learned had he not had to remind me again of something that he's had to remind me of over and over and over. So I'm like, wow, that was it. All right, that's my big lesson. That's amazing. So then, I go to church on Sunday. I go to Ron. I'm like, Ron, look at this lesson I learned, right? Told him the entire thing I just told you. Thank you for sitting through it like 8 times. So I'm like, Ron, check it out. Isn't that awesome? And Ron's just smiling and shaking his head. I'm like, what? What? And he goes, you're still missing it, aren't you? No, I'm not. I told you. This is the thing. Like, I'm missing out on the deeper things because, like, there's lessons that I'm missing out on because I'm not actually just, that's the thing. And he goes, no, you're missing it. I'm like, what am I missing? And what he said next broke me. So what you're missing out on is the absolute and incredible blessing that it is that God chose you to be a part of his plan, and that he wants to use you, and that he wants to have you touch people's lives in the way that you can. That's the point. The point is, I'd lost the foundation of gratitude, of just the fact that I woke up this morning. God is he doesn't have to use me, but he's choosing to use me, and that is a huge blessing. The blessing of being used, the blessing of being called by God. That was what I was missing out on. And I went, oh my gosh. The blessing of being used by the one who is in control of it all. Because in the middle of it, I'm feeling like there's chaos, and it's not, I can't control anything, and nothing's coming together, and I don't understand how all these pieces are going to fit. But I'm held firmly in the hand of the one that does, that sees it all. He sees me trying to put all the pieces together, and he's just kind of laughing at me going, you're stressing about the wrong thing, man. You're stressing about the pieces, but just the fact that you're there putting the pieces together, that's a blessing. So it was a giant reset for me. And I thought that was really interesting, and I wanted to share, because I talk about it all the time. And for me to talk about it and hear myself talk about it all the time and still so quickly, blindly run into the same thing that I talk about all the time not doing, man, it's insane. It's crazy to me sometimes that I still fall victim to that. I still do those stupid things, but I'm so grateful for Topher, for Ron and Dave the entire time that we're out there working. He's got such a good attitude, and he's got a smile on his face. I'm surrounded by men that I'm incredibly grateful for. So it was amazing. Speaking of the one who has everything under control, as we look into now Revelation chapter 6, when we see these seals being opened and the wrath being poured out, these judgments happening, it's going to seem like chaos, but it is controlled. Because ultimately this tribulation that happens, there's a sequence to it, and the sequence doesn't even begin until the Lamb opens the seal. In verse 1 of chapter 6, we saw, now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the seals. So nothing starts until the Lamb opens the seal. But the Lamb can't even open the seal until after the 24 elders lay down their crowns on the sea of glass before Jesus on the throne. So the sequence has to take place. Something that I noticed this week which blew my mind. I don't know how I missed it before. But the Lamb doesn't receive the scroll until after the 24 elders lay their crowns down, and that doesn't happen until the 24 elders and the 7 lampstands, which we read about earlier, are in heaven. And we know that the 7 lampstands represents what? No. Well, in one area, yes, but the 7 lampstands, essentially the 7 fires, or the seven lampstands of God, the complete Spirit of God. The thing that I didn't realize was, well, if we have the 24 elders, which represents all of Old Testament, New Testament, the believing saints that are up in heaven now, and that's rapture language. And if we have the 7 lampstands, which would be the complete Spirit of God, well, that makes sense. The complete Spirit of God has to be in heaven if he's been removed from the earth after the rapture. So now I'm going, oh my gosh, it totally makes sense. So the sequence doesn't begin until the Lamb opens the seal. The Lamb doesn't receive the scroll until the 24 elders lay their crowns down. The 24 elders and the 7 lampstands don't even show up until the rapture.
He receives it before they worship. Verse 5:8. And when he had taken the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders.
Did I write that wrong?
Before the Lamb. So he
I wrote it wrong. Yes. You're totally right. Thank you for catching me. Yep. So I put those backwards, but the point that I was driving was just the fact that I didn't recognize those 7 lampstands indicative of the complete Spirit of God. Of course, it would be the entire Spirit of God in its wholeness, because the rapture happened. The Holy Spirit is no longer embodying the people on the earth, which would be the complete Spirit of God up in heaven now. I thought that was really interesting. Let's do that really quick. Another thing that jumped out was in Matthew chapter 23, and part of one of the studies that I was going through this week regarding this was the fact that there's a purpose for all of it. As we're looking at the judgments, there's specific purposes for everything that comes to pass. And the reason that there's a specific purpose for all of it is because it's been written since the beginning of time. And when Jesus has been talking about a lot of this stuff in Matthew chapter 23, in verses 37 through 39, we have this little structure here about the purpose of all of history. In verse 37, he says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those that are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings." That right there is the purpose of all history, so he can gather his people. He created people so that we could be in communion with him. The fall happened, the sin happened, separated us from his presence, but the entire point, the entire purpose of creating us was so that we could spend eternity with him. We messed that up. So when Jesus came, the whole purpose of history, how often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings? That was the purpose. And the tragedy of history was, and you were not willing. That he showed up to collect his people, they were not ready, they were not willing, and they rejected him. And he says in verse 38, "See, your house is left to you desolate." So that's a near consequence for them not being willing or ready. That their house is left to them desolate. But then, the triumph of all of history is in verse 39, "For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, 'Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.'" So while he's giving them a near-ended judgment, saying, "You will not see me again," what he is saying is, "I'm promising you will see me again." So that's the triumph, is the fact that they will kill him, they will put him to death, but he will rise again, and he will come back, and they will see him again, and they will say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." So we have the purpose for all of history, we have the tragedy of history, and then the triumph of history. And in Hosea chapter 5, we see the purpose of the tribulation. In verse 15, he says, I will return again to my place. That means he's left his place. His place is in heaven. I will return again to my place until they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face. That means he left heaven to come here. He's going to return again to heaven until they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face. And in their distress, earnestly seek me. So we see now that's the purpose of tribulation. For all the people that have rejected him, he's in heaven, he's left earth, and he's done that for a time period. It's only for a short time. It is a purposeful time so that the people in their distress will earnestly seek him. The purpose of the tribulation is to drive people directly back to him. That's the whole point of the tribulation. That's the whole idea behind everything that we're going to start seeing here coming to pass. All of these things start getting greater in intensity and greater in power. And it's not just to say, I'm coming in anger and killing everybody. It is to wake people up. It's that final wake-up call saying, look, this is my power. I'm showing you greater and greater signs so that you cannot ignore me. And we talked about last week the rider on the white horse. We saw how he came with a bow, but not any arrows. That means he comes in peace or diplomacy, but he came out conquering and to conquer. So he's coming initially in peace, but it will end up in war. Initially he comes without any arrows, but the peace will be taken. And we're going to see that here coming up in verse 3. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, Erku. That's so rad that came up. Awesome. Thank you, Ron. Erku, come. And out came another horse. Another. That term another is alos or alas. It means another of the same kind. So we have another horse, another symbol of judgment, and it's bright red in color, pyros. It's a deep blood red, but it also is encompassing like a fiery red, the same kind of red that we would see in other descriptions of fire in both Old and New Testament. Now, its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth. This is another thing that I found really interesting. Number one, its rider was permitted, meaning it doesn't have any authority. The riders don't have any of their own authority. The only authority they have is to execute the judgment that's already been given to them. So they have one job, and it is to do their job. They don't define what their job is. They don't try to characterize it. They don't explain it. They don't talk about it. They do it. They just execute the judgment. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth. Take peace. That means peace isn't humanity's default. Taking peace means humanity isn't peaceful by itself. If left to its own devices, we are horrible. You'll have different pockets of people trying to work together, sure, but a lot of times it's for mutual benefit or ulterior motives. But when we say this rider was permitted to take peace from the earth, this shows that peace is a gift from God. And God is now allowing this peace to be removed from earth so that people should slay one another. Svatso. That is the same term that we see when we just saw the lamb that looks like it had been slain. Same word. So that people should slay one another, violently kill. And he was given a great sword, Makira. It's a close combat sword that the Roman soldiers would have. It wasn't their the 18 to 28 inch sword that we talked about before. This was the one that was strapped on their side underneath. This was maybe 12 inches long, 12 inches long. This was for close combat. This was for something that if their other sword was gone, their shield was gone, this was their last line of hand-to-hand combat. It was double-edged, so it had no problem piercing. It had no problem cutting from both ends. So, peace has been removed from the earth, the gift of peace, so that people should slay one another. And he was given a great sword. So now we see that this bright red, with peace being gone, we see wars. I gotta go back to Matthew 24 because something else that kind of when I zoomed out and I looked at everything on like a bigger picture, we see these horsemen come, and the first horse is the white horse, which we know to be the Antichrist, which we know to be an illegitimate Christ or a fake copy, which is deception. And now we see the second horse, the red horse, taking peace away from the earth. That's war. And in Matthew chapter 24, we see that Jesus is saying that in this time, he says, "See that no one leads you astray, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray." So number one, deception. He warns first and foremost about deception. And in Revelation, when we get here, he's detailing that white horse, that deception that is going to come, that's going to sweep over many nations. He's going to bring peace, and he's going to look like on the surface, I'm bringing peace, I'm going to fix everything, like most politicians will say. And when we look deeper into the Old Testament and New Testament, we have so many different names for the Antichrist. I think there's 28 in the Old Testament and like 18 in the New Testament. All different names, Jewish titles given to this man. And when John's writing in Revelation, he never actually calls him the Antichrist. He uses Jewish titles. And from here on forth, when we are reading from Revelation 6 on, we're going to see an increasing amount of Jewish titles being used for the different things happening, and there's a specific purpose for that. It's to bring to mind the Old Testament prophecies that were written, that people would be like, oh yeah, okay, I remember this was talked about, and now we're seeing it come to pass. So we see deception. Jesus warns about deception, people coming out and being led astray. And then he says in verse 6, "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet." So he's showing that this stuff is happening. It's setting the stage. And in chapter 6, that second horse comes out bringing war. And often, when war ravages a nation, typically, what happens? What follows? Famine. Oftentimes, I came across this quote. Some of you may have heard of this guy. His name is David Jeremiah. Brilliant historian. But as far as famines coming right after war, David Jeremiah writes, "As a country is engulfed in war, the able-bodied men take up arms. Farmers leave their fields and food supplies become scarce. Soon there is malnutrition and disease. Ultimately, the wild beasts prey on the weakened people. Historians tell us that more people died of epidemics of influenza and typhoid after World War I than those that died in the World War itself." So when the men run off to war and they're dealing with things on one front, most of the strong are gone, and the people that are left over are the weak, or the women and the children, and they're left on the homestead, and they're not able to defend themselves against many things. And oftentimes we see the men that run off to war are killed. So when they come back home, or not when most of the others come back home, we have farmers, we have the people that are doing a lot of the work to feed the population. They're now gone. So now the women and children are having to do that work. We saw earlier on in history with, wow, where did it go? The Ukrainian nuclear power from the 70s that melted down. Chernobyl, my goodness. So when Chernobyl happened, even though Ukraine is where it is, all the way through Western Europe, hundreds of miles away, livestock was infected. It was radiated. The ground and soil was radiated. So immediately thereafter, all those crops destroyed. You couldn't regrow crops for a while. All the animals that you would use to feed the people, now you can't use them anymore. So the people at home, now they don't have fathers and brothers and husbands to do the work and to do all the main stuff that needs to happen, because they've either left for war or they've been killed at war. They can't feed themselves, they can't work the crops. So crops dry up. We saw that with Chernobyl, that a lot of the crops in that area were dried up, and especially some land in that area. They're saying that it is habitable now. It's still radiated. It's still not, you can't grow crops. You still are having animals with wild genetic mutations. Maybe you can walk through it, sure, and tour. It's not safe. You're not going to have anybody want to choose to live there and grow anything and eat it out of the ground. So it devastates communities. And now we live in we live in a world where nuclear war is a real threat. We have officially 9 countries that house nuclear weapons. Israel more than likely does, even though they won't come right out and say it. Iran has hundreds of pounds of really, really enriched uranium. Did a whole sidebar study on uranium and why that matters in the enrichment process. That's wild. So now I really understand why there's such a big pull for making sure that they cannot further enrich that. They're really close, for Iran, by the way. So now we have a lot of world actors. North Korea possesses nuclear capabilities as well. We're seeing a lot of this stuff happen where, I mean, there are so many nukes in the world, and the deliverance capabilities of these nuclear weapons, never before in history have we been able to completely obliterate the entire planet within an hour. 1 hour and the entire planet could be completely devastated, where you can't even grow anything because of the nuclear fallout. So we can see how that is a potential thing where in Revelation, as things start to amp up, I'm not going to say nuclear war is in Revelation, but we could say it is a possibility. So when we start seeing this next horse come out, when in verse 5, when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come." And I looked, and behold, a black horse. Black is often synonymous with famine. And its rider had a pair of scales in his hand. Now again, notice that the rider has scales in his hand. He executes that judgment, but he doesn't define it. Those scales are defined by somebody else. He just holds the scales, but heaven determines how those scales are being used to judge humanity. In verse 6, and I heard what seemed to be a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and wine." So with this language of famine, first of all, a denarius back in 1st century, even though the weights varied a little bit, 1 denarius was equivalent to 1 day's wage. In that day, it was about 0.1 to 0.12 troy ounces of silver. Today's standards, as of last night, it'd be worth about $7. So I'm like, hold on a minute. You guys lived off of $7 a day, but the economic comparison doesn't jive. Back in that day, a denarius was given for an entire day's work, or for a soldier on the battlefield, it was an entire day's wage for his work on the battlefield, and that equated to what he would need to feed himself. So that would be a denarius for a quart of wheat. A quart of wheat was the amount of wheat designated by Rome to say that this is what a Roman soldier would need to feed himself for one day of work on the battlefield. So here we're seeing that a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. I'm sorry. Back in this particular day, you would be able to get 3 to 4 quarts of wheat for a denarius. And for barley, it would be between 6 and 8 quarts of barley for one denarius. So one day's wage, what you would be earning from being on the battlefield, or what you'd be earning for working for an honest labor, you would be getting a denarius. You could trade that in for 3 to 4 quarts of wheat, or 6 to 8 quarts of barley. Barley was lesser. It had lesser nutrients. It was typically used to feed livestock. They used to commonly refer to it as camel feed. Less nutrients, but it would suffice. If you were very hungry, you'd eat the barley. You would make barley loaves. But wheat was a little bit more of a higher commodity. But we're seeing essentially in this judgment, it would be a 300% increase on that sort of thing. So we're seeing that instead of being able to have 3 or 4 days of wheat for one day's of work, so that he could either have several loaves and take care of a family with it, or he'd be able to help other people with it generously, he would work all day and barely have enough to just feed himself beyond starvation. This is barely feeding yourself. And so we're showing that he would have to work all day. Now, what about the soldiers that have family and children, wives and kids at home? He would work all day for one loaf of bread, essentially, to feed him, his wife, and children. It would be massive inflation. In our terminology, this has been said for decades now, it would be the equivalent of a loaf of bread costing us $200 or $300. With today's day and age, with today's prevailing wage, we'd be looking at about a $300 loaf of bread. But we're not talking one of those store-bought, we're talking like a loaf of bread that you would eat and barely be able to sustain yourself for one day. So we're seeing massive inflation, but only on those couple of things. A quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do not harm the oil and wine. Those things were typically for the rich, they were for the wealthy. And so we're starting to see essentially this gap start to widen between the wealthy and the poor, those that have and those that don't. So we see income inequality now. I mean, shoot. Last week I was going to talk about how Elon Musk is our first trillionaire in the world, and the insanity that is. 1,000 billions, 100,000 millions, huh? What? It's a million millions. I'm sorry, a million millions. That's no. Numbers far too big. So we're saying, okay, all that's massive wealth, and yes, sure, it's all tied up in companies, and really, he has no liquidity. He lives poor. Whatever. On paper, we're seeing most of the world living for, well, a lot less than that. There's a lot of people living on less than $1 a day. But here in America, we're seeing like the poverty line of like 35,000, 40,000 a year. The majority of Americans are living on that, if not a lot less than that. And then we have this one dude that's got over $1 trillion. And I was going to mention that last week. But SpaceX went public, and in one day, dude earned another $470 billion in one day. In one day, he made more money than Warren Buffett made his entire investment career. In one day. That's ridiculous. So we're talking about wage inequality. We're talking about these people like the haves and the have-nots, and there's this giant gap. We see that today, and we kind of just, man, it's laughable how these people are living super rich. They're disconnected. They just don't understand. You ask them, how much is, a stick of deodorant? And they're like, I don't know, $35. And you're like, what kind of deodorant? Does it have gold in it? What are you talking about? They're disconnected from the normal people. It's going to get worse. We're seeing this now, and we're seeing that even in the richest country in America, we are prosperous and wealthy, and we're doing very well, and we boast about having all of this military power and might. Yet how many people are on the street homeless? How many people are hungry? How many people, and that's not a money problem. You can't throw money at it and fix it. I mean, cities like Portland and Seattle and Los Angeles have thrown billions of dollars at the homeless problem. It's not, they don't have enough. It's misappropriation of funds when you give it to them. There's deeper issues that need to be rooted out before you can actually start handing them money. You understand that a lot of them have mental health issues. A lot of them have drug issues, and they're choosing those over getting clean because it's either easier or it's going to be painful to get clean. It's going to be a hard trip to get back into regular society. So they just choose to live that way. What I'm talking about is, in this particular day, the Great Tribulation, things are going to get so much worse. In our particular world, right now, I just checked these stats last night so that I was completely up to date. We are shielded from it, and a lot of times we will hear from other people that are going to these different countries and seeing these people that are really, really poor. In our world as of today, we are seeing 730 million people are classified as chronically malnourished. That means they chronically, over time, do not get enough calories to sustain themselves. This is not just, oh, well, they don't have enough money to feed themselves, they're living on ramen. This is, they have nothing, and they are consistently not getting enough calories, where they are consistently losing weight and not able to sustain themselves. That is 1 in 11 people in our world today. 1 in 11 has no idea where they're going to get their next meal. Malnutrition today kills more people than tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV and AIDS combined. In our world. Half of every child death, 1 out of every 2 child deaths in the world under 5, they're linked to malnutrition. That means 50% of the kids that die in our world under the age of 5 today are dying because they don't have food. Yet here we are in a country that is so super rich, and most of all of these other developed countries are racing towards this AI development when so many people are going hungry. And so we'll start to see a wide gap between the people that actually have and the people that don't. It's going to get a lot worse than it is today. And part of the reason for that is because the sheer number of people that are on the planet. First of all, it took from the beginning of recorded history until the year 1804 for us to amass 1 billion people on the planet. That's a long time. It's like 4,000 years. It took us 4,000 years to reach 1 billion in 1804. In 1927, we hit 2 billion. So just over 100 years, and we got to 2 billion. 33 years later, we hit 3 billion in 1960. 14 years later, in 1974, we got to 4 billion. 1987, 5 billion. 1999, 6 billion. 2011, 7 billion, and today we have 8.3 billion people living on our planet. With that trend, we are looking at 2037 is the estimated time that we're going to reach 9 billion, and about 2059, if we make it that long, scientists are estimating we'll reach 10 billion and probably cap off right about there and hover, if not decline a little bit, just because of scarcity of resources and other things. So we're going to see more people than we even have now, less resources, and those resources are going to cost a lot more. We see this language all the way back in Leviticus 26. I thought this was really interesting because when we see this language of scales, we see in verse 26, when I break your supply of bread. This is God telling the people, when I break your supply of bread, 10 women shall bake your bread in a single oven and shall dole out your bread again by weight. When we talk about bread being doled out by weight, and you shall eat it and not be satisfied, this means there's not going to be enough. When we talk about doling out bread or wheat by weight, this is a time of famine. We only talk about it when we're in famine. Ezekiel chapter 4 talks about the same thing. Rationing out the bread, or breaking the supply line of bread. In verse 7, when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say,
Ergo.
And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. This pale horse, some of your translations will say pale, others will say green. This is the Greek term chloros. It's where we get our term chlorine from it. It's like a light, pale green hue. A way that we can describe this pale green hue is the look of death, decay, rotting flesh. You guys have heard the terms when people are either air sick or seasick. You look a little green under the gills. When you start looking green, it's because the blood has flown out, or it's come out of your skin, and you're left looking kind of gray or pale, green, ashy. And that's what we're seeing here, is that fourth living creature calls, this pale horse comes out. But here we see this has two riders, or a rider that follows. And its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. Now, I always got kind of confused. I was like, Death and Hades, okay, I thought they were the same thing, but they're not. So Death and Hades, the simplest way that I can explain this with my little time constraint that I'm looking at here is essentially your body and soul. Your body dies, your soul is alive. Your body dies, that's death. Your soul dies, and that's where your soul goes, is to Hades or heaven. So death and Hades, you have death, which is killing the body, and you have Hades for souls. So it's coming. So again, we have the first horse come, the white horse, deception. We have the second horse come, red, wars. We have the third horse come, black, famine. And we have the fourth, which is bringing death and Hades. And they were given authority over a fourth of the earth. Again, they were given that authority. They don't have any authority. They have a set parameter by which they can operate. They must operate within those parameters. They cannot deviate. And the authority they were given is over a fourth of the earth. Now, we just talked about, we have 8.3 billion people. If that were to happen today, we talk about a lot of lives being lost from World War I. We talk about a lot of lives being lost from World War II. We talk a lot about lives being lost, millions being lost in the Holocaust. We talk a lot about Genghis Khan and Mao. We talk a lot about the millions, tens of millions of people that were slaughtered during those campaigns. And this is going to be so much worse than that. We're talking a quarter, and if that happened today, we'd be looking at 2 billion people. That's over the population of China. even the idea that China has over 1 billion people is just mind-boggling to me. I mean, it's a huge place, so it's easy to think they're all spread out and whatever else. But when you look at some of the cities that are popping up, China's doing something really weird. They're building full-on skyscraper-laden cities first, then moving in millions of people to fully automated working cities. They aren't moving and like planting a couple thousand people, then building around them. They're fully planning cities first, then moving populations into these cities. And then taking the farmlands, doing the same thing. Just demolishing the farmlands, and then planning out new cities with new skyscrapers, housing millions and millions of people, and they sit empty until they get populated. They do it backwards there. And they have so many cities. We're like 50 to 100 cities that have millions and millions of people. That we're looking like we have in the United States, we're looking at like, Los Angeles and Seattle and New York City, these giant populous centers. And we have a few, but China has so many of them, it just blows your mind. Then we look at India. Tiny little country. And they've got over 1 billion people packed in this tiny little country. Imagine everybody in the entire United States. That's 350 million people. It's about 7 or 8 United States worth of people gone like that, because they have the authority to wipe them out. When this happens, this is going to strike fear in the hearts of everybody. We're going to talk about that next week because I don't have time to get into it right now. Dang it! No, that's good because I'm going to start with that. That's so good. So good. Can't wait for that next week. You guys are going to love that. Okay, so they were given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword and with famine. Sword, same word. Machaira, that close combat, violent, with sword and with famine and with pestilence, sickness, and by wild beasts of the earth. It mimics the language from Ezekiel 14, sword, famine, wild beasts, and plague. What I find really interesting is this phrase here, with pestilence and by wild beasts of the earth. By wild beasts of the earth. That word that we have translated beast, theron. Now, that's different than what we see for our creatures, because with our creatures that we see, the 4 living creatures, some translations call them beasts, but it's an improper translation of the word in Greek, which it starts with an A, and I can't pull it off the top of my head right now, but it just means living or created being. Here, theron, we're seeing beasts. This has the negative connotation to it, meaning they're wild animals, they're wild, ravenous beasts. Now, these wild beasts of the earth, it's interesting to think about that they are coupled with pestilence. Because it says to kill with sword and with famine and with pestilence, but by the wild beasts. So it suggests to me that these wild beasts bring in the pestilence, because it's specifically tied to with that word and, which is kai. Nowhere else in that sentence was it specifically connected this way, and we're seeing pestilence by wild beasts of the earth. In Europe, all of us should be pretty familiar with the Black Plague. How is the Black Plague spread? What?
Rats. Please.
Now, is Revelation saying that rats are going to take over the entire world? I'm not saying I'm not saying yes, but I am saying pestilence, disease. In our world today, the number one carrier and transmitter of diseases, rats. That's how the plague spread. Yeah.
There's been an influx of rats in the Tri-Cities. Back
pool, my floating, watching the rat run along the fence line.
Yeah.
And set out more traps. But not quite sure why they've shown up.
I don't know.
And it might be because of all the farmland you're disposing of.
Might be.
We've got 2 orchards taken out near us. And I think that may be part of the problem.
They got nowhere to go now. Yeah. So again, when it says wild beasts, I don't immediately think of rats. But how else I I don't see bears spreading disease. I don't see lions or tigers or maybe monkeys. But I see the greatest spread of filth and disease being rats. Not biting people, just getting everywhere and spreading filth everywhere because, again, pestilence. Bugs we can't see. The number one killer of humans is bugs we can't see. So, and they're spread by wild beasts that we can. I thought it was really interesting to draw that comparison between the beasts, the pestilence, Matthew 24 and 23, when Jesus is talking about, hey, look, I'm giving you warnings. You're going to see deception. You're going to see war. You're going to see disease and sickness. You're going to see death. And we see all of these things taking place. Then he talks about earthquakes. And when we get into the next couple of verses, next week, we're going to start seeing some of these other things that start to unfold that Jesus has specifically warned us, that he specifically called us out about. So we're getting into some chaotic times. But again, like I wanted to mention at the beginning, even though things can seem crazy and chaotic and we get caught up with our daily things about, I wake up and if I'm 5 minutes late, oh man, I automatically think I got to get on, because I'm already not set up on time because I'm 5 minutes late and I have this to do and I've got to stop over here and I got to deliver this over there and I got to go here and still have to work, and whatever your day looks like, before you start running down that road and doing anything else, the main thing that the Holy Spirit used Ron to convict me of and to also comfort me about was you don't have to do your day alone. He has designed you to be in constant communication with Him so that everything you go through, everything you encounter, every person you see it through His eyes because you're connected with Him and you're constantly talking with Him and you're constantly keeping your mind focused on things above. So when things happen, you approach them with the mindset of, I'm supposed to be here. So this is happening for a reason. God ordained this to happen. So how does God want to use me in this situation? Or how is God using this person to show me what He wants to speak to me directly? What can I take away from this? God, how can I use this to get my relationship deeper with you? How can I learn a lesson that I haven't learned before by just being mindful that I should be doing everything with you? That's the lesson I learned. Take it as you will. Take anything else. Maybe a healthy disdain for rats. I don't know. But whatever you take away from today, I hope it's something to get you closer with Jesus. So let's go ahead and pray, guys. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for waking us up, for allowing us to be part of your plan, a plan that you have, that you've put together long before you even spoke our world into existence. You knew how all of this stuff was going to shake out. And our brains are so finite that we see certain things happen in this world. We see just honestly the things that we deal with on our daily basis. And we get sometimes overwhelmed with the things that we deal with. We get tunnel visioned into, I need to do a certain thing, or I have this list of things I need to accomplish. And a lot of times we forget that even those mundane tasks, even when I'm brushing my teeth, I can be brushing my teeth with you. I could be thinking or talking with you in my brain about something that I'm going to be doing later on that day, or something I read in my Bible that you showed me about that I want to go deeper with. A relationship with you is more than just waking up, reading a quick scripture and being like, all right, I'm going to try to put that into practice today, and then leaving and doing my day. It's having you come with me and speaking about, hey God, that verse that I read today, I enjoyed it, but
I'm headed to work. How can I apply this at work today? Help me to find somebody to talk with about this verse that you're helping me with, something that you've shown me that I can change in my life to either do things better or do it the way you want me to do it. Help me to find those opportunities to share these little nuggets with people, because a lot of the times I want to just tell people that Jesus loves you. But you never called us just to walk around telling everybody we see Jesus loves you. You've called us to be mouthpieces for you. And when you told us to spread the gospel, yes, you do love people, but you love them enough to confront them about their sin. You love them enough to tell them that you died for them for a reason. And the way that they're living is the reason for you dying for them. You're calling us to be bold in this time when we're seeing all of these things unfold. You have warned us. But God, if we've been warned, it's not for us just so that we have hope to be pulled out of it before it happens. You've warned us so that we can warn other people. Your heart breaks for people, and that's why you're allowing all of this to happen, so that more people would wake up and realize they need you. And for those of us in this room, we've woken up, we've realized we need you, and we realize some of the things that are coming are going to be devastating, and we rest in the hope of salvation, that we are not going to go through it, that you are going to remove us from it. But God, help us not just sit complacent with that hope of salvation, but let a fire be lit that whoever we come into contact with needs to hear that too, or at least be reminded, even if they are a believer. We need to be reminded constantly that you're in control. Nothing is in chaos for you. You sit on a throne surrounded by a sea of glass. It is calm and tranquil. You have everything under control. And when we understand that fully, the weight that we try to carry when we're doing our stuff every day, it melts away. We were never meant to carry that weight. We were meant to give it to you so you can carry it and walk with us and help us mature. God, we thank you for that gift of just being a part of your plan. We thank you for waking us up so we get another chance to just try to get closer to you, to learn about you, to put into practice things that we learn, that you're revealing to us. We thank you for constantly revealing to us your plan, your will for us. Strengthen us as we go this week. Help us to be mindful of you and to remember that you want to walk with us, not just in the morning and evening, but all day long. And we thank you for your faithfulness and just the fact that you even desire to be around us, that you love us that much. That blows my mind, God. I thank you so much for that. I want to reiterate the prayer requests that we lifted up before you earlier today, God. Your will be done with all of it. And allow us to get on board with your will. We thank you. And we ask for all of these things in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Thanks, John.